the Phillies can push the Braves. And that leads us to our final topic today. The Phillies are in first place in the NL East right now. And I think for a lot of us, we thought that's never going to happen this year. But they have it, and they have maybe the best rotation in the game. They got a ton of stars in that lineup. Can the Phillies actually edge out the Braves this year?
Oh, yeah, I think they can. They absolutely can. Does it mean anything when you get to the postseason? No, it doesn't. But regular season, it seems as if the Phillies are a little bit due. Or we've said that in the past with the Padres with all that talent, but they haven't really put it together. They didn't reach the NLCS as we know in 2022. But the Phillies, they've just so much talent on the field, and it's kind of strange to think that they haven't won the NL East with how much money that they're spending on their roster. But Atlanta is in their way. And I think, there could be that role reversal where the Phillies are just, that much more dominant during the regular season. And Atlanta's fine with getting in on one of the wild cards. And then they go on and make a run. So it doesn't really matter as much. And, I don't know what to make of that small sample size we had last year. The teams had the first round bye, not faring very well in the division series. But I don't think teams don't necessarily care whether they're wild card or they win the division, despite the fact that winning the division, does give you that a couple extra days off. I think, the Phillies can very much hold on to this lead, despite the fact that they're much more comfortable being in the number 2 spot where they can just kind of go at their own pace and not be looking over their shoulder, because I think there's some benefit from being in that second spot and not having to worry about, what the team, beneath you is doing each and every day. You just know you need to win. You just need to go out there and do that. And you don't have to be concerned with anyone else.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because the Phillies have a formula, but it's not something that you would go into the season saying, yeah, we're not going to go for first. Like, of course you're going to go for it. And I actually think that it's one where it might actually mean something because they haven't won the division since 2011. It's been a long time since the Phillies have won this division. The Braves, they have always dominated the NL East, but since 2018, they have won every single year. And prior to that, it was the Nationals that was winning the division, and the Mets won in 2015. But it's been a long time for the Phillies. And I think it would be a sort of point of pride. And then on top of it, it would be that I know that they have, I'm sure, a ton of conversation in that clubhouse about Brian Snitker's comments before the season, talking about the days off and how much of a disadvantage it is. And they're thinking, well, we actually had to win a series before we met you, and then we beat you. So I think for them, what they want to see this year is let's win this division, let's meet the Braves again, and let's knock them out again. And then there'll be no doubt who the best team in this division's been the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's something that's within your control is being able to do that during the regular season. And once you get to the postseason, yeah, everyone's trying to win the World Series, and that can be a bit of a crapshoot. But to do it in the regular season, like you said, for the first time since 2011, back when one of your favorite players, Chase Utley, was on the roster, right? So
one of my favorite players.
Yeah. All right. I didn't say it was your boy. I didn't say that. I didn't do that to you.
My least favorite player of all time.
Oh, really? Is there any reason why? Do we want to get into that? It's not.
He actually made me like Ruben Tejada for a minute, and I didn't like Ruben Tejada either. So
here you go. I'm surprised that that's been that long because we've so recently seen the Phillies in the postseason just about every single year. But you're right, it's as number 2, and so I'd be curious to know actually how late in the season Phillies have been in first place, right? Because early on in the year, it's not really that important. They say Memorial Day is kind of the first time that you really look at the standings to figure out what's what. So it would be curious to know if this is how late that they've been in first.
I think it's been a while because I know 2022 when they made it, it was very much a kind of late push to even make the playoffs. 2021, that was a weird year where they might have like grabbed it in August for a minute because there was a point in time where all 3 teams, the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies, were kind of all neck and neck. The Mets led the division the entire first half, and the Braves took it over and then won the World Series. But yeah, I mean, you look, they had some rough years. I mean, they had a lot. They had a couple middling seasons, 2018, 2019. They had a 3 years in a row of 90 plus losses from 2015 to 2017. So the Phillies, I don't know when they've really had kind of that clear shot to the division that they seemingly have right now, because when your starting pitching is this good, that those are the teams that win divisions when you have a great starting rotation. And at this point, I don't think there's a question that the Phillies had the best rotation in this division, if not in the National League.
Yeah, and that's what carries you through a season, is just having those horses that you can ride, give you a chance to win every possible outing. And you're right, the Phillies have that. They have some depth in the upper levels of the minors. I think the Phillies in Atlanta, they're probably similar with their prospect pools, just a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see who will be more aggressive. I would probably give that edge to the Phillies, because we know how Dave Dombrowski feels about prospects and how aggressive he can be and go out there and make those moves. Where Atlanta, they're looking for a little bit more sustainability. It's not to say what the Phillies have right now isn't totally sustainable, but we'll see if their owner is willing to continue to spend in that upper echelon for 5 more years. I think they got most of these guys for at least the next 3-4, where they're going to be relevant and liking what they get from their top guys before they start to get old. So I would give that edge to the Phillies of saying, they can bolster the roster if they need to, but when it comes to starting rotation, they simply won't need to do that. Whereas Atlanta, with the Strider injury and Chris Sale, always kind of one pitch away from you holding your breath and clutching your chest, that gives the Phillies a big advantage, I feel like.
I think the Phillies are this team where I wouldn't take their next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years over the Braves. But for this one season, the way things are mounting, I'm starting to believe that the Phillies might, go toe to toe with the Braves and could actually be the best team in this division.
2021 is a long while back, right? And a lot of those guys aren't still around. And say what you will about the Phillies last October against the Diamondbacks in the NLCS, they haven't choked, right? They haven't choked quite as much. Nobody likes it when you choke, that's for sure. So I think the Phillies, they absolutely can do it. Am I suddenly changed this weekend just by the fact that the Dodgers have won 3 games in a row against Atlanta? I'm still ticking Atlanta to win this division, but again, with the horses, with everybody clicking right now in Philadelphia and seemingly almost overdue, this just opportunity right now could allow them to hold on to this really tightly, because if it goes back to Atlanta, Atlanta will not let go of that hold.
Yeah, it's funny because I've always, any podcast here, any Locked On Mets, I've always sort of just said the Braves are winning this division. It's like an open and shut case for me. Something about seeing the Phillies with a 2.5 game lead, not that it's definitely going to hold, but it just opens my mind to the possibility. And I think that's what we're getting at here. I believe that the gap between the Phillies and the Braves is probably a lot closer than we really gave the Phillies credit going into the season. And kind of shame on us because they've shown the last couple of postseason that they can do it. And they just seemingly are getting better, especially to see Ranger Suarez elevate that rotation this year. I think that's been the big thing early, and we'll see how that holds up. But it'll be a debate on this show many times, I am sure, throughout the rest of the season. We will be back on Wednesday. We'll go live Wednesday night to break down the latest in baseball and who's better. So make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts. On YouTube, hit that subscribe button if you're watching any of our videos. And like I said, we'll be back on Wednesday. And where do they find us on Twitter, Patrick?
Who's Better BB?
Who's Better BB? We'll be live on Wednesday.